Today, I'm going to be going over 8 reasons of why we use the Sony FX3 here at the podcast studio. Reason number 1 is the full-size HDMI port. Many cameras, including Sony and Canon and Panasonic and all the major camera manufacturers, have a lot of cameras that use mini or micro HDMI ports. And you might be thinking, I can get an adapter for that. And you can, and it works, but you don't want to. Those ports are very flimsy, they break easier. You don't want to be fiddling with adapters. The full-size HDMI port is robust and reliable. We also use it to plug into an A10 mini ISO. And the reason we do that is so that the client can see what the camera angle looks like before the recording starts on the TV. And we also record from that as a backup recording in 1080p. That way, even if the camera were to fail or the SD card were to corrupt during the recording, we have a backup on an SSD through the A10. Dual SD card slots. Dual SD card slots is important to us because of redundancy. You never want to lose a client's footage. This way you could record to 2 SD cards at once because you never know, one could fail. And this way you have a backup. Or if you were doing a really long shoot at a high bit rate, you could record one to the other, and that way you have a longer recording time to capture the whole podcast. Full frame. This is a full frame camera. If you can afford it, why not? It makes it so that the lens are a bit bigger, but if you have the space, you get a better depth of field, or a greater depth of field, I should say. And you also get better low light capability. Although we are in a lit studio environment, it's a nice thing to have. USB-C. Everything is USB-C these days, except for the iPhone, which even that is going to change very soon. USB-C is a great feature to have because number 1, you could transfer footage to the computer. And number 2, even if you are like, I don't need to do that, I pop out the SD card and put it in my reader, you could keep it charged through USB-C. So we keep every camera plugged into a USB-C power adapter at all times. And that way, even if the power goes out, it's charged. So again, you got power and then you got backup power. That's what you want. Unlimited recording. The Sony FX3 does not have a recording limit. That means as long as it has power and storage remaining on the SD card slot, you can record indefinitely. Most cameras have that these days that come out, but a lot of Canons and older Sonys have a 15 or 30 minute record limit. For a podcast environment, you do not want this. Yes, you could go and just hit record again when it goes out, but you might forget. And even in those few seconds where you're not recording, you're gonna miss something. It's more professional, it's better. Get a camera that doesn't have a recording limit. Netflix approved. The Sony FX3 has the Netflix approval. And what this means is you could use it on a Netflix production. Netflix has a pretty strict standard for their equipment. So if it's good enough for them, it's probably good enough for your podcast. Also, you never know. Maybe a Netflix production would hire our studio to record a podcast. So it's a good capability to have. Autofocus. The Sony FX3 has great autofocus. I'm sure we've all messed up a recording where the shot was slightly out of focus and you don't realize until it's too late. Yes, you could increase sharpening. Maybe AI could fix it a little bit now, but you want to get in focus and you don't want to have a camera that's constantly hunting for focus. So that's another reason we chose this camera. Flat image profile / raw recording. The Sony FX3 can shoot in a very flat image profile. You can plug in an external monitor through that full-size HDMI port that we mentioned earlier and record it in RAW. To be honest, we don't use these features very much, but they are very nice to have if we have a particular client that knows how to color correct and wants the highest quality footage possible. We could shoot it flat and then there's room to color grade in post. So there you have it. That's 8 reasons why we chose the Sony FX3 to record podcasts here at the studio. Highly recommend it. I think these are $3,000 to $4,000 for the body alone. That doesn't include the lens. So if you want to record your podcast using an FX3, but maybe can't afford your own or know how to work them, rent our studio. We are located in LA and New York City, melrosepodcasts.com. We'll see you soon.